The Vikings were incredible explorers. They sailed vast open oceans. Think about the North Atlantic. It is cold, often stormy, and very, very wide. These remarkable seafarers reached distant lands like Iceland. They established settlements in Greenland. They even journeyed to North America, which they called Vinland. They accomplished these voyages centuries before Christopher Columbus. For a very long time, a big question puzzled historians and scientists alike. How did they find their way across these enormous stretches of water? They did not possess the magnetic compasses that later sailors relied upon so heavily. Their journeys were truly remarkable feats of courage, endurance, and navigational skill. Navigating the northern seas presented truly unique and formidable challenges. The weather in these latitudes could be incredibly fierce and notoriously unpredictable. Dense clouds often blanketed the sky for days or even weeks at a time. The sun, when visible, was their primary and most reliable guide for direction. When the sun shone clearly, Viking navigators could observe its position in the sky. They could track its apparent path from sunrise to sunset to understand east and west. But what happened when thick fog rolled in, obscuring all landmarks? Or what did they do when violent storms raged and the sun was completely hidden from view for extended anxious periods? This was the crucial problem they needed to solve. Ancient Norse stories, which are known as sagas, offer tantalizing clues. These sagas are grand, epic tales. They recount the adventures of heroes, the deeds of gods, and the daring voyages undertaken by the Viking people. Within these rich narrative texts, we find intriguing mentions of a mysterious object. This object was called the Solarstein. In Old Norse, this word translates directly to sunstone. The sagas describe this sunstone as a kind of magical stone. It was a special stone that possessed the incredible ability to help find the sun. It could locate the sun even when it was not directly visible in the sky. For many years, most scholars and historians dismissed this as pure legend, a fascinating piece of folklore. The very idea of a sunstone captured many imaginations over the centuries. People wondered about its nature. Was it perhaps a divine gift from the powerful Norse gods, similar in wonder to Thor's mighty hammer Mjolnir? Or could it have been a special kind of crystal imbued with unknown and mystical powers? These captivating sagas were carefully passed down from one generation to the next. They painted a vivid picture of Vikings who seemed to possess almost supernatural abilities to read the world around them. The sunstone became an enduring symbol of their deep connection to the natural world. It hinted at a secret knowledge, a special understanding that allowed them to master the treacherous seas. But the question lingered. Could this captivating legend actually have a solid basis in reality? For a very long time, the sunstone remained firmly in the realm of myth and legend. Then, as scientific understanding progressed, scientists began to look much closer at these old tales. They started to ask a critical question: could such a stone with such remarkable properties actually exist in the natural world? Could a naturally occurring material truly possess these sun-finding capabilities described in the sagas? This important question effectively shifted the sunstone from the pages of folklore into the laboratories of scientific investigation. The dedicated search began for a real-world candidate. They needed a stone that could convincingly match the legendary descriptions. In 1967, a Danish archaeologist named Thorkild Ramsku proposed a very plausible candidate. The most likely candidate for the legendary Viking Sunstone is a specific type of crystal. This crystal is commonly known as Iceland spar. Iceland spar is a particularly transparent and pure variety of the mineral calcite. It's found quite commonly in Scandinavian countries, including, as its name suggests, Iceland. This crystal possesses some very special and quite unusual optical properties. It is generally clear, much like a piece of ordinary glass, but it does something quite amazing and unexpected with light that passes through it. Vikings would certainly have had access to this intriguing material. They could have discovered deposits of it themselves, or perhaps acquired it through their extensive trade networks. The key scientific property of Iceland spar that makes it a sunstone candidate is called birefringence. This phenomenon is also known by the term double refraction. Now, this might sound quite complicated, but the basic idea behind it is actually fairly simple to grasp. When a ray of unpolarized light, like ordinary sunlight, enters an Iceland spar crystal, something fascinating happens. That single ray of light splits. It divides into two separate rays of light. These two newly formed rays then travel along slightly different paths as they move through the interior of the crystal. Consequently, if you look through a piece of Iceland spar at an object, you will actually see two distinct images of that object. This unique behavior is absolutely central to understanding how a sunstone might have worked. This intriguing splitting of light within the Iceland spar crystal is directly related to something called polarized light. Sunlight becomes polarized as it scatters off molecules in the Earth's atmosphere. This means the light waves tend to vibrate more in one particular direction. Even on a completely cloudy day when the sun itself is obscured, the sky still has a discernible pattern of polarized light. Humans, with our unaided eyes, cannot normally see these patterns of polarized light, but a crystal like Iceland spar can effectively react to it. By carefully rotating the crystal, one can observe distinct changes in the two refracted rays or in their relative brightness. This change can reveal the direction of the polarization and thus the hidden sun. So, how exactly did a Viking navigator on the high seas actually use this special stone? Let us try to imagine a Viking longship. It is sailing on a grey, overcast day in the North Atlantic. The sun, their primary celestial guide, is completely hidden from view by a thick layer of clouds. The ship's navigator would then take out their precious sunstone. They would carefully hold this crystal up towards a patch of the sky. They would need to look through the stone at the sky itself, not at any specific object. The crucial part of the process was to rotate the crystal slowly and observe the light passing through it. They were looking for a very specific optical effect. As they meticulously rotated the Iceland spar, they would watch the two images produced by the crystal's birefringence. Or, alternatively, they might look for subtle changes in the overall brightness of the light that was passing through the stone. There is a particular orientation of the crystal where the two images seen through it appear to align perfectly. Or there is a point where one of the images becomes noticeably brightest or perhaps darkest compared to the other. This specific orientation of the sunstone, when achieved, would directly indicate the direction of the sun's hidden position behind the clouds. It is almost like having a secret window, a special tool that allows you to see the sun even when it is invisible. This method, using the properties of Iceland spar, is surprisingly accurate. Modern experiments have been conducted to test this ancient technique. These experiments have shown that it is possible to determine the sun's position to within just a few degrees of its actual location. This level of accuracy is certainly sufficient for practical navigation, especially on long sea voyages. It would work even with quite thick cloud cover. It could also function when the sun is just below the horizon during the periods of dawn or twilight. The sunstone acts like a sophisticated filter. It effectively makes the invisible pattern of polarized skylight visible to the navigator. This capability would have been a huge, almost unfair advantage for Viking seafarers. Once the sun's true position was known, even if it was completely obscured from direct sight, the Vikings could then confidently determine their cardinal directions. They could figure out which way was north, south, east, and west. This knowledge was absolutely essential for their ambitious and often perilous long-distance voyages. These were journeys that took them across the vast and often featureless expanse of the North Atlantic Ocean. They used this knowledge to successfully settle new lands like Iceland and the icy shores of Greenland, and, most remarkably, to reach far-off places like Vinland, which we now know as part of North America. The sunstone could very well have been a vital and highly prized tool in their sophisticated navigational toolkit. Is there any hard, conclusive archaeological proof that Vikings actually used sunstones for navigation? This is where the field of archaeology attempts to provide concrete answers. Direct, irrefutable evidence from the Viking Age itself, roughly 8th to 11th centuries, is admittedly scarce. These crystals, like Iceland spar, can be somewhat delicate. However, in the year 2002, a very fascinating discovery was made that lends support to the theory. It came from a 16th century English shipwreck found near Alderney, one of the Channel Islands. Amongst the wreckage, archaeologists uncovered a small, unassuming piece of Iceland spar. Crucially, it was found in close proximity to other known navigational instruments from that period. This ship is, of course, much later than the Viking Age, but it strongly suggests the sun-finding principle of Iceland's spar was known and utilized by mariners. Other potential finds related to sunstones or similar navigational aids are still debated among experts. For instance, a fragment of what some researchers believe might be a sun compass device, known as the unartok disk, was discovered in Greenland. Some scholars have proposed that this disk could have been used in conjunction with a sunstone to enhance its accuracy. However, definitive Viking Age sunstones excavated directly from Viking archaeological sites remain elusive to this day. This lack of direct findings does not necessarily mean that they did not use them. Many organic materials and specialized tools often do not survive the harsh conditions of centuries spent underwater or buried in the earth. The dedicated search for more direct archaeological evidence actively continues. The sunstone theory provides a beautiful and compelling connection between ancient Norse legends and the principles of modern science. It strongly suggests that the sagas, long considered mere stories, might actually contain kernels of real historical details and technological knowledge. These important details could have been cleverly hidden or embedded within their grand, epic tales. The Vikings, this indicates, were not just fierce warriors and raiders, they were also incredibly keen observers of the natural world around them. They were clever innovators and practical problem solvers. They clearly developed sophisticated and effective techniques to navigate some of the most hostile maritime environments on Earth. This emerging understanding challenges older, often simplistic views of them as navigators who relied merely on luck or basic coastal hugging. The discovery and scientific understanding of the sunstone significantly reshape our contemporary view of Viking navigational capabilities. It clearly highlights their potentially advanced knowledge of optics and complex natural phenomena. Long before the magnetic compass became a common navigational tool in Europe, the Vikings may have possessed this reliable and ingenious method. A method to find their way across vast, featureless oceans, far from any visible coastline. Their extraordinary voyages across the North Atlantic were a profound testament to their immense courage, their superior shipbuilding skills, and importantly, their remarkable navigational ingenuity. The sunstone, once dismissed as a mere myth, now stands as a powerful symbol of their inquisitive spirit and their surprisingly scientific approach to mastering the challenges of their world.